Hey there, welcome back to Change Coach Conversations. I'm working from my dining room today, so hopefully the video isn't too echoey. I'll have to listen back and see how it sounds, but hopefully it's all right. So today is Change Coach Conversation number 12. I can't believe we've done 12 of these. And it's what it means when you have difficult clients. So I love this one. This is a super, super fun one. So at some point, in many points, every coach has clients who they feel are kind of difficult. And, you know, it's not just a coaching thing. All of us as human beings find people in our lives who appear difficult at times. So as a coach, how might your clients appear difficult? Well, some of the ways that come to mind for me are that, you know, they just aren't seeing what you're pointing them to. So as change coaches, we point to one place and one place only. We know that the people we're working with are perfectly healthy, have everything they need. There is no ultimate problem with them, but they're caught up in an experience that they think is them. So they're caught up in their thinking, their feelings, their stories, whatever it is, and they're identifying with that. So it's super simple, as you know, if you've been listening to these conversations, super simple, because there's only ever one thing going on with our clients. So we're pointing there perhaps, but they just aren't hearing it. And we're pointing creatively and in every way we know to point, and we're sharing stories and analogies and all kinds of stuff. And for whatever reason, in some period of time, they aren't hearing it. So we might say, oh, wow, this is a difficult client. Another way that clients may look difficult is if they have really difficult circumstances that they're living through. So, for example, the death of a child, or like a major life transition in some other way. And we might look at that and say, oh, this is a difficult client. They have this thing they're up against. What else? Sometimes people get kind of defensive. So sometimes clients, they, in their innocence, we could do a whole video on this, but they kind of seem like they want to cling to their story, to their suffering. Sometimes clients argue. They're kind of argumentative or combative, or they try to kind of, everything you say, they try to prove you wrong. Now, let me say, most people who are ever going to pay you for coaching aren't going to do that, because why would they be paying you for coaching if they're just going to argue the whole time? But it happens, right? It happens all over the place. So we as coaches might experience that as difficult. Now, here's the really cool thing. There's only ever one thing happening every single time, no exceptions. Every single time it appears to you as if you have a difficult client, your client is difficult, there's one thing happening. Do you know what it is? Drum roll. I always have the drum roll moment in these. You are in your head about it. They aren't difficult. There's nothing wrong with them, but you're in some thinking. You, as the coach, innocently are in your own thinking, in your own head, and what they are dealing with is looking difficult and more complicated than it truly is. Every single time across the board, because that's the only option. So in those scenarios I just mentioned, difficult circumstance, let's say someone's child just died, or they lost their job, or whatever. If that looks difficult to you as a coach, what's happening is you're in your own blind spot. You're saying, oh my gosh, I don't know what I would do in that situation. Or you're forgetting that circumstances don't create feeling. And that doesn't at all make you not compassionate. It's just the opposite. You're thinking, oh no, they really are screwed. They have this thing going on. And we know how human beings work and where experience comes from, and it doesn't come from that. So when we're seeing things with clarity, that's not going to look difficult. Now, it doesn't mean, again, you're not going to be full of compassion for them, and it's not going to be maybe hard conversations to have because it's emotional, all of that. But it's not going to look like a difficult thing, because it's truly no different in terms of where their experience is coming from than anything else. So also what happens with circumstances is we think we need to fix it for them. Now, we do this so innocently. We get up and, oh no, that's a big thing. I don't know what they should do. Well, we never know what they should do. It's good when we as coaches don't know what they should do, because that's none of our business. It's not our job to go in and fix their circumstances because they aren't causing the problem anyway. It's not our job to know what to do or to even muck around in that level of circumstance. It's our job to help them see where their experience is coming from and who they really are, that they're that space beyond all this experience. And from that place, they know exactly what to do in their own lives. They solve their own circumstances, or those circumstances fail to bother them. So same with the other things. Someone's not seeing where you're pointing them, or they're defensive, or they're fighting back, or whatever. If we can see, when we see that all that's ever happening there is they are just caught in thought, period. That it's not on us, it doesn't mean anything about us. It's not difficult, but especially for new coaches, and I went through this for so long. I've been coaching for 12 years, and I remember for the first many years, like it always looked like I had certain people that were just more difficult. And it was one of those things where I can see now, no, I didn't see this at the time, but I can see now, yeah, that's because I was in conversation with them thinking that I was doing it wrong because they weren't hearing me, or you know, I had some agenda or some expectation for after how many sessions they should have a shift or whatever. That's where we as coaches make that stuff up. We truly completely fabricate it. It gets made up in our own heads, and then we're just in our own heads taking our own thinking seriously. That's all that's ever happening in that scenario. So it's really cool to see that over my 12 years of coaching, I've gone from having clients who, you know, a subset of clients who look really difficult, to now they don't look difficult, but the people I work with are objectively dealing with a lot tougher stuff. So all the time, like people in the Little School of Big Change or newer coaches that I'm working with will say, whoa, that's a tough one. Like, how do you handle that? And she's like yelling at you, or she's this or that. And it's so fascinating because I don't experience it as difficult. Now I see that they're in pain, right? Much more so than the people I worked with early on. They're in pain, but I don't see that as difficult because it has nothing to do with me, and it's incredibly simple. I know with absolute certainty where their pain is coming from, and I can just talk there. And I also know that they aren't going to necessarily hear it while I'm talking with them. And so that's wonderful, because I see all the time people don't necessarily hear it, at least not in its full, you know, as deeply as they can hear it while we're talking, but later on they hear it, or a month later they say they heard it, or whatever. I've talked about this in other conversations of these. So there's less of that. It's really always back to our thinking as coaches. So I love this as just a really simple, you know, kind of a little test for ourselves, as like a little alarm for ourselves. When you're working with someone who looks difficult for any reason at all, it's a beautiful opportunity to say, whoa, what do I have going on here that looks real to me? Which is awesome. You know, and as our grounding gets deeper, as we keep seeing things more and more simply, that all humans are exactly the same, we operate in the same way, our suffering comes from the same place for the same reasons, and we just keep looking at that simple, what's in common all the time, oh my gosh, it gets so much easier for us as coaches, so much more effective for them as well. When I first came across this understanding, people would argue, as they do, and they still do all the time, what do you mean, like, money doesn't make me happy, or that losing my job doesn't make me sad, or all of that, right? Like, it doesn't look like life is inside out. It looks like life is outside in. And when people would argue that early on, even though I really had seen something like, that's right, there's no way money can make a person happy. There's no way losing your job can make a person upset. I saw that on some level. It would still kind of rattle me a little bit sometimes. And now it never, ever, ever does. And I just share that to let you know that, again, as you are in these conversations more and more, you just see the proof of it everywhere, and everyone you talk with, your grounding gets so much deeper, and it just won't rattle you either. So there's nothing to call difficult. If anything, it's kind of more fun sometimes to have those more challenging conversations. It kind of makes you rise to the occasion as a coach. So just know it's all within you. It was all within me, still is. That's just how we work. So thanks so much for listening to this one. I'll be back next week with the last Change Coach conversation of this year, 2019. And if you want to see more about difficult but not really difficult clients, check out the Change Coach training program, but there are only 1, maybe 2 spots left. I think there are 2 spots left, but people are eyeing them up. So talk to me soon. It's going to fill, and it'll fill relatively soon. So please talk to me soon if you want to get in on that training program this time around. So have a great week, and I'll see you next week.